This lesson, we are going to be sorting that deck of cards we built in the last lesson. So creating a function in order to do the sort. And just like with many things in JavaScript, there are a number of ways to randomize array content. And I'm just going to call this one shuffle. It's going to pass in cards. And I know this is a global value, so we don't necessarily need to randomize that. But we can if we want, and if you want to update that, we can do that as well, where we can shuffle that that array in place. So this will make it more flexible. Like if you want to use the shuffle somewhere else, you can just simply copy the function. And what we're going to be using is the array sort. And arrays sort, so those of you that are familiar, they sorts the element of an array in place. So that means that it takes the array object, and if you do months sort, it's going to output that in a different order. And every time you sort it, it's going to output it within that sorted order. So we see here it's alphabetical, and here it's putting the numbers, so smallest. And also note that it goes 1, 100,000, 21, 30, and 4, because it sorts it according to first character. So even the digits, it takes them as string values, and it does the sort that way. So there is another option to kind of extend upon what sort has to offer, and that's the compare function. So the compare function, so you can pass in some values into the sort, and you can run a compare function. And this is optional. And it specifies a function that defines the sort order. If it's omitted, the array elements are converted to strings, then sorted according to each character's Unicode code point value. So that's what's happening over here, where by default it's sorting it by that Unicode code point value, and they are being converted to strings. So that's why you can't sort the numbers. So if you do want to do that kind of sort, or if you want to randomize the content of the sort, you can pass in those first element values for comparison, and then the second element values for comparison. They've got some examples here, and this one, it is fairly complex to understand, but if you do look at what the examples they have here, A is less than B by some ordering criterion, and then A is greater than B by the ordering criterion. So it's either returning a -1 or a 1, and if it's not, if they're equal, it's returning a 0. So when you do a compare numbers, A and B, it's going to do a comparison of those numbers. So if instead of returning back -1, 1, or 0, we randomize this using math random and just do a 0.5, and then we multiply it by, or we subtract the math random, it will either be a plus or a minus, and that will randomize our sort order. So let me show you how this is going to work. And there's more information, of course, available at the Mozilla Developer Network, so that's the document that we're just looking at. So we're taking in the value of whatever the cards object is, so that's being passed into this function. And then we've got the sort, an anonymous function within the sort. And within this function, we're going to return back 0.5 minus math random. And then we can also console log that out, so you can see the different values that are being returned back. And it's actually not going to be exactly that, but this is just so you have an idea of what we see within the console. And then this function is just going to return back that cards object. So it actually doesn't have to return it because the sort is in place, but we're passing in that card object, and then we're sending that whenever we've constructed the cards. Actually, we'll add in one more function there so that we can see that randomized deck. So now when we open up the deck of cards, they've been randomized. So it's no longer that same order, and every time I refresh it, I'm going to have a different randomized order of the deck of cards. And you can see all of the values that were being returned back. So in most of the cases, so we're getting we've got negatives, we've got positives, and that's what we're really looking back at, how the content is being sorted. And you see all of the numbers being returned back in the console. So of course, it's not the exact number. Within the return, it's just important to note that either it's doing a negative or a positive, and that's going to be affecting the sort order. And it's randomized just using the math random method that's available in JavaScript. Get rid of this one. And that's actually it for randomizing the deck of cards. So this was a really quick function and a quick way to do randomization of the contents of an array.